I never forgot that blistering spring day in 1877 when the dust storm hit Willow Bend like the wrath of God himself. I was just 8 years old, a scrawny little thing with freckles across my nose and a ribbon my mama had tied too tight in my hair. The wind howled through the Wyoming plains, kicking up red dirt that stung my eyes and choked the air. Folks were scrambling for cover, shutters banging like gunfire. But there he was, Jack Harlan, fighting to keep his wagon from flipping over like a tumbleweed. His horses reared and snorted, their manes whipping wild, and Jack, all 6'5" of him, gripped those reins with hands like iron vices. I watched from across the street, my small fist clutching Mama's skirt, but even then something in me stirred. A pull, like the storm itself was whispering secrets about the man who'd one day change everything. The chaos didn't faze him. He yelled commands to those beasts, his voice cutting through the gale like a knife through leather. "Steady, boys! Hold the line." And they did, because no creature or man dared defy Jack Harlan when he set his mind to it. The storm passed as quick as it came, leaving the main street shimmering with heat and dust settling like a blanket over everything. That's when he stepped out of Olson's general store, a sack of flour slung over one massive shoulder, a coil of rope dangling from his calloused hand. His broad chest heaved from the effort, but his steel-blue eyes scanned the horizon with that quiet determination I'd come to know so well. Kids in town whispered he could wrestle a bull single-handed, pin it to the ground without breaking a sweat. Grown men didn't argue. Hell, they stepped aside when he walked by, his boots thudding heavy on the boardwalk. I remember staring at him, my heart thumping like a rabbit in my chest. Mama tugged at my sleeve. "Clara Benson, come away from there. We've got errands to run." But I couldn't move. He filled the street without trying. A giant in a world of ordinary folk, moving with the patience of someone who'd learned to carry burdens alone. Something bold rose up in me, a child's certainty maybe, or the first spark of a love that would burn slow and steady over the years. I yanked free from Mama's grip, marched right across that dusty road and planted my feet in front of him. I had to crane my neck way back to meet those eyes, but I did it. "I'll marry you when I'm grown up enough," I declared, my voice small but sure as a gunshot. Laughter erupted from the bystanders like a dam breaking. Old Mr. Thompson, the blacksmith, leaned in his doorway, guffawing so hard his hammer slipped from his hand. Two women with baskets of fresh bread clutched their sides, giggling behind gloved hands. Even Mr. Olson, peeking from his store window, let out a chuckle that echoed down the street. But Jack, he didn't laugh. He set that sack of flour down gentle on the wagon's edge, straightened up to his full height, which made me feel even tinier, and looked at me proper. His face was weathered by sun and wind, lines etched deep around his mouth from years of squinting at the horizon, but those eyes softened, like he was calming a spooked colt. "That's a mighty promise, little one," he said, his voice low and gentle, rumbling from deep in his chest. "Hold it close. Words like that can shape a lifetime." I lifted my chin, defiant as ever. "I will," I promised, my gaze never wavering from his. The laughter died away then, the crowd sensing something in my certainty that hushed them. For a split second I saw it, a flicker in Jack's eyes, like a pebble dropped into still water, rippling out. Then I turned and scampered back to Mama, my ribbon fluttering behind me like a victory flag in the fading wind. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in streaks of orange and purple, our family's wagon stood loaded outside our little cottage, chairs tied with rope, quilts rolled tight, a cradle wedged between trunks full of everything we owned. We were heading west, chasing Papa's dream of richer land beyond the mountains. I helped as best I could, dragging small bundles to the wagon bed, my arms aching, but my spirit fierce. Mama's voice cut sharp through the fatigue. "Clara, stop dawdling. We've miles to cover before nightfall." But I clutched that ribbon from my hair, shaking my head stubbornly. "I told Jack Harlan I'd marry him when I'm old enough," I insisted, planting my feet. Papa, tightening the harness on the lead horse, gave a short bark of laughter. That big old cowboy? He's old enough to be your pa, set in his ways like a river carved in stone. You'll forget this nonsense by the time we're past the county line, darlin'." I crossed my arms, fierce for my size. "I won't. He's strong and kind, and I promised." Mama sighed, tucking a blanket tighter around the cradle where my baby brother slept. "Children's words, Clara. Life will give you other choices. better ones. But my jaw stayed set. I climbed onto the wagon seat last, my eyes sweeping Willow Bend as if memorizing every plank and post. The cottonwoods along the creek rustled in the breeze, their leaves whispering farewells. As our wagon creaked forward, Jack passed by in his own rig, loaded with fence posts and lumber. He raised a hand in quiet farewell, his silhouette massive against the setting sun. I lifted mine higher, holding it until the road bent and the town vanished behind the trees. That night, as we camped under a blanket of stars, I lay awake in the wagon bed, the ribbon twisted around my finger like a ring. The wind carried echoes of the storm, and in my mind Jack's voice replayed, "Words like that can shape a lifetime." Little did I know how true they'd prove. 12 years. That's how long it took for life to circle back on itself, pulling me from the wilds of Oregon back to Wyoming's endless plains. Those years weren't kind. They carved me like wind on sandstone. Papa's dream of fertile land turned to dust when fever took him and my brother in '82. Mama remarried a stern logger named Elias, who dragged us deeper into the forests, where days blurred into chopping wood and mending clothes. I grew tall and strong, my auburn hair falling in waves I pinned back practical, my green eyes sharpening with the weight of loss. But through it all, that promise lingered, a quiet flame in my chest. I'd whisper it to myself on lonely nights, imagining Jack's ranch house, big and empty, waiting like I was. By 1889, I was 20, a woman shaped by hardship but unbroken. Elias had turned mean with drink, his fists leaving bruises Mama pretended not to see. One night, after he raised a hand to me for talking back, I packed what little I owned, a faded dress, Papa's old pocket watch, and that worn ribbon, and slipped away under cover of darkness. The stagecoach ride east was long, dust choking the air, but my heart raced with purpose. Willow Bend, Jack Harlan. The words pulled me like a lodestar. The summer sun beat down merciless as the stage rattled into town, brakes squealing on the hard-packed earth. Folks paused in their errands, shielding eyes against the glare. I stepped out, my sky-blue traveling dress clinging to my skin, auburn hair drawn back neat under a ribboned hat. The air smelled of sage and horse sweat, familiar as an old dream. My eyes scanned the street, heart pounding like thunder in my ears. There he was, Jack, unloading sacks of feed from his wagon outside Olson's store. Time had etched deeper lines on his face, silver threading his dark hair at the temples. But those steel-blue eyes were the same. Intense and unyielding, he froze mid-motion, the rope slipping from his hand as our gazes locked. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. "Is that little Clara Benson?" someone murmured.
"Grown up and back from the dead."
I swallowed hard, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Jack Harlan." He set the sack down slow as if afraid I'd vanish like a mirage. "Clara," he rumbled, his voice rough as gravel but warm, stirring memories I'd buried deep. Sheriff Boone, a grizzled man with a mustache like broom bristles, stepped forward, tugging his hat brim. "Boarding house burned last winter, miss. No decent place left in town for a lady alone. Closest safe roof's out at Harlan's ranch." Martha Hale, the plump widow who ran the bakery, nodded vigorously, her apron dusted with flour. "You'll be safe there, child. Jack's got the space, and he's as honorable as they come." The townsfolk murmured agreement, though a few eyes narrowed with curiosity or judgment. Jack just gave a single nod, silent as ever, and reached for my trunk. His hands lifted it effortless, muscles rippling under his shirt, and something in me twisted. A mix of awe and that old child's affection blooming into something deeper, more dangerous. I gathered my skirts and climbed onto the wagon bench beside him. The leather seat creaked under my weight, and as he clucked the reins, the horses started forward. Dust rose in our wake, mingling with the years that had separated us. The ride out to the ranch was quiet, the only sounds the creak of wheels and the distant call of a hawk. The valley stretched wide, unchanged, cottonwoods leafing green along the creek, the sky a vast blue dome. I stole glances at him, noting the way his jaw clenched, the scars on his knuckles from ranch work. "It hasn't changed," I said at last, my voice soft. "Not the valley. Not you." His eyes flicked to me, then back to the road. "Some things endure," he replied gruffly, but there was a weight to it, like he was testing the words. "But you've grown into a fine woman, Clara." Heat crept up my cheeks, not from the sun. Grown. The word hung between us, heavy with unspoken possibilities. My heart ached with the memory of that childish promise, now feeling like a lifeline in a sea of loss. What if he laughed it off? What if the years had made me a fool? The ranch house came into view, white clapboard walls rising tall against the horizon, the porch wide and inviting, but the windows dark, curtains drawn tight. The yard was barren, no flowers blooming, no children's toys scattered like in my dreams. It was a house built for a family, but lived in by a ghost. Strong bones, but an empty heart. Jack reined in the horses, climbed down with that quiet efficiency, and unloaded my trunk. I stepped onto the porch, my boots clicking soft on the boards, my hand brushing the rail as if claiming it. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and faint dust, of meals cooked for one. The parlor held a piano, lid closed tight, keys untouched for God knows how long. The dining table stretched long, chairs polished but empty, waiting. Upstairs he showed me the room across from his, bare walls, clean linens folded neat, sunlight slanting across the quilt like a promise. I stood in the doorway, taking it in, my chest tight. "It feels like a place waiting for someone to come home," I murmured. Jack's broad frame filled the hall behind me, his presence a solid warmth. "Been waiting a long time," he said, his voice rough, laced with something vulnerable that made my heart stutter. Our eyes met, and for the first time I saw the loneliness etched there, mirroring my own. The empty rooms didn't feel so hollow anymore, not with him standing there, close enough to touch. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the plains in gold, I rolled up my sleeves in the kitchen. The space was sparse but functional, a cast-iron stove, shelves of tin plates. I kneaded bread dough on the scarred wooden counter, flour dusting my hands like snow. Outside, the rhythmic thud of Jack's axe split wood, each swing echoing his strength. Sweat gleamed on his brow when he came in, stacking logs by the hearth. I set down a second plate beside his own at the long table, steam rising from the fresh loaf. He paused, staring at it like it was a miracle. "Ain't had company in years," he admitted, sitting heavy in his chair. We ate in companionable silence at first, the scrape of forks the only sound. But as the lantern flickered, words came slow.
"Why'd you come back, Clara?"
he asked, his eyes searching mine. I set my fork down, heart racing. That promise I made, it never left me. Through the fevers, the hard times, it was my anchor. He exhaled slow, like releasing a breath he'd held too long. A child's words. "I carried 'em too, but I figured life'd wash 'em away for you." I reached across the table, my fingers brushing his knuckles. "Some promises endure, Jack, like you said." That touch lingered electric, stirring emotions I'd kept locked away. Loneliness, yes, but something more, a yearning for connection in this harsh world. As night fell, crickets chirping outside, I lay in that guest bed, staring at the ceiling. The house creaked, settling, and I wondered if Jack lay awake too, his heart echoing mine. Willow Bend had pulled me back, but it was Jack who held me here. A giant of a man with a gentle soul, and I knew deep down, this was just the beginning of our storm. The next morning dawned bright, the air crisp with the scent of dew on grass. I rose early, slipping downstairs to start coffee. Jack was already out, saddling his horse for the day's work. I watched from the window, admiring the way he moved. Efficient, powerful, like he was part of the land itself. When he came in for breakfast, bacon sizzling in the pan, he nodded approval. "Smells like home," he muttered, and my cheeks warmed at the compliment. But Willow Bend wasn't all quiet plains. Word of my return spread fast, and by midday, visitors trickled in. First was Martha Hale, bustling up the porch with a basket of pies. "Clara Benson, as I live and breathe. Look at you, all grown and pretty as a picture." She hugged me tight, her ample frame smelling of cinnamon. "And Jack here, Lord, he's needed someone to liven this place up." Jack shifted uncomfortable, muttering about fence mending, but Martha winked at me. "He's a good man, Clara. Don't let his silence fool you." Heart of gold under all that gruff, then came Sheriff Boone, hat in hand, checking in. "Town's buzzing about you two. Some folks remember that promise of yours. Call it fate." He eyed Jack sharp. "You watch out for Harlan Voss, though. That snake's been eyeing your land for years. Heard he's none too pleased about Clara here." Jack's jaw tightened. "Let him come. I can handle Voss." The name sent a chill down my spine. Voss, a rival rancher known for dirty tricks, rustling cattle, and worse. Boone nodded grim. "Just saying keep your powder dry." As the day wore on, I explored the ranch, my boots kicking up dust in the barn. Jack's horses nickered soft as I approached, and I stroked one's muzzle, remembering Papa's old mare. Jack found me there, leaning on a stall. "You ride?" he asked. I nodded. "Used to, back west." He saddled a gentle bay for me, and we rode out to the fence line, the wind whipping my hair free. Side by side, the plains rolling endless, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. But under it simmered tension. The pull between us, unspoken, but growing. That night, a storm brewed on the horizon, thunder rumbling distant. We sat on the porch, rocking chairs creaking. "Tell me about your life out there," Jack said, his voice low. I hesitated, then poured it out. The losses, Elias's cruelty, my escape. Tears stung my eyes, but Jack listened, his hand covering mine warm.